Thank you so much, Gordons. And thank you to all of you for being here today. It is a pleasure to be able to talk to such high-level politicians who are here today, and personalities of such high level who are going to open this second panel on Europe and Africa and building the future. Rebuilding the future with a permanent conversation, a permanent dialogue with our colleagues and our African partners. In this afternoon's panel, we will focus on a matter which is very important, and it is human development and the important challenges we have in our future and in this present too, which has been marked by the pandemic, and the important role that women have, that African women have in the future that we have to build. This role is key because women, African women, are a key driver for development. Women are the main source of work in the continent, and African women also are very active women, and they are really leading the transformation processes and change processes in their continent. They are women who take care of their families, they care for their families, and they lead their communities, and they transform their societies, and they fight, and they do all of this facing very significant problems and hurdles. Sometimes the hurdles are so huge that we have difficulties to even imagine what they are. That is why dialogue, listening, and being in touch, being in contact with our African partners is so important. It is a process, actually. It is a very constructive process, and we learn very much from them. As has been said, looking at the future, taking into account fighting poverty and human development, taking into account human development too, well, this is currently a challenge that the EU and Africa share in the difficult situation of economic and social crises that the pandemic is leaving and will leave behind. We cannot ignore that maybe, and according to some official data, the African continent may enter into an economic recession in 20 years, or that some of the most important human development index progresses might be threatened precisely because of the terrible consequences of the pandemic. Some of them are related to health, and others are related to education. According to the UN, 11 million girls are at risk of not going ever back to school, which would mean having a lost generation. In all the sectors, in all the economic sectors, it will be necessary to have cooperation agreements and investment agreements in order to be able to overcome the situation and to reach a sustainable human growth. This growth has to be within our Green Deal between the European Union and the African continent. And we have to find the keys so that this active role that African women already play have a space so that they can be present in all the sectors where investments, change, and transformation are needed in the economy of the continent. Sectors such as renewable energies, telecommunications, or technologies, information technologies, also those are very important for women because women are the scientists, for instance, important African scientists, women, and they have to be clearly in these sectors present. These are transformation sectors, and I will not talk for very much longer because we have a marvelous panel today, and I would like to give them the floor very soon, immediately, in a moment. So we have this common challenge, and we have to know that all any kind of knowledge sharing is necessary, and the possibility of being able to count on knowledge sharing, knowledge transfer with young university teachers or students who could come over to our countries. I'm talking about women, of course, and also sharing knowledge with those many entrepreneur women. 80% of Kenyan SMEs are actually led by women. So women who in many cases overcome terrible burdens as not having access to credit or as having problems of, of not being sufficiently accredited to, for instance, be the owners officially of a company, but they do it, they manage it, they cope very well. And this is so important. We have to build on this, our dialogue, so that we can reach our investment and recovery objectives, economic, social, and human recovery. All of those are important. So this is what we're going to talk about on this panel. And as I said, our panel is just extraordinary. First, I will give the floor to Mrs. Hakima Elhaité. Hakima Elhaité is a scientist and she has specialized in climate. She's an entrepreneur and a Moroccan politician. In 1994, she founded Globe, the first environmental engineering company in the MENE, Middle East, North Africa region. In 2015, she was elected vice president of COP21. She has also been chairperson of the Entrepreneur Women Association in Morocco in 2017, and she's been vice chairperson of Liberal Women in 2012. She has been many more things, of course, and I would not have time to go through her whole CV. Her large, extensive CV has turned her into the chairperson of the Liberal International, and she is the first non-European in holding this position. Thank you so much to you, Hakima. You have the floor now, and thank you for being here today with us. Muchísimas gracias, señora Soraya Rodríguez. Es un placer estar hoy aquí. No solamente soy la presidenta internacional liberal y todo lo que ha tenido la gentileza de decir, pero sino también estoy aquí como mujer africana.
An African woman who believes that the future of Africa will much depend on its capacities to send young women to school and to appraise them, to make sure that the reproductive health on the whole continent will be guaranteed, but also empowered to show the way to Africa. We cannot guarantee development of women in the obscurity, so we must put the light on for women on Africa, but also support them to help them open the doors to the new digital tools in Africa. And we saw during the pandemic how incredible progress they can make despite of the pandemic, thanks to the digital tools. So enhancing, building capacities of women in Africa needs, in my opinion, a pluridimensional approach. And I totally agree with what Jeffrey Sachs said on priorities, but I would like to add two things. First, let us not forget road infrastructure. You talked about women entrepreneurs. Most women entrepreneurs in Africa are working in the agricultural area, rural areas, where transportation is difficult because of a lack of infrastructure, and the most part of their production is lost because of ill refrigeration conditions and transport. So I would like also to add another point. Yes, we must support Africa through the existing institutions, but also through civil society, which plays a key and exceptional role on women's capacity building and empowerment. The last great, incredible initiative was the initiative of 50 million African women to strengthen women entrepreneurship in Africa. So today, I would say that beyond the telling enormous inequalities women in Africa are facing, they participate actively to their local economies and they work on a daily basis to get their families out of poverty, which remains a scourge in many African countries. Everyone knows, and they are right, that Africa is a she continent, and many problems are exclusively faced and mostly faced by women in Africa. Many women do not go to school, but spend their day going looking for water, and the increasing droughts and climate change as a whole makes this situation even worse. They must go further away to find water. Women in Africa are the first victims of climate disasters, the first victims in the way the pandemic was managed, because they are working in public health mostly. They are also victims of domestic violence, sex abuse, you will know that, also sexual harassment and so forth. But these women, which we see as victims, are the one feeding Africa, because 90% of agricultural output in Africa, according to the OECD, comes from women. They represent 70% of jobs in Africa, 25% of micro businesses or entrepreneurs in Africa. It's the higher rate of women entrepreneurs in the world. It's only 18% in America. Of course, it's not companies of the same size, but it's about entrepreneurship of African women. And those women, entrepreneurs, they are, and at the same time, they fight against discrimination, exclusion. They are working in micro businesses, underpaid, in the informal channels, and many are not really entrepreneurs. They don't know how to manage administratively a company. They don't know what opportunities are out there. They don't know how to develop a business plan to access funding. So in many cases, women do not have access to any funding. In some countries, they can't even be landowners, because I'm talking about women dealing with agricultural activities. In many countries, they don't even have the opportunity to produce, to adopt an economy of scale and find a market. In many cases, they do not have access to a market. There is also another issue, is the loss of their agricultural output because of the lack of packaging and tool for the purpose of packaging. So these women are fighting on a daily basis to continue their business, make their family live, fight poverty, and take their families out of poverty. And on top of all these issues, the cultural barriers put enormous pressure and make their lives even more difficult. There are also political barriers and other such even more incredible barriers, because in some countries, women are really standing alone which is not good for women's networking and for the power women can have to make things develop in the right direction. Now, as an entrepreneur, and I have created the first company in environmental engineering in Africa, I was myself faced with numerous issues. First, access to funding, because of procurement practices managed by men. You know that as women, we don't have the same kind of networks. We don't spend our nights in cafes and bars to make contacts and networks. We are very different and we don't have the same ethics of work, if you will admit my way of talking, gentlemen. So we are very different externally, but also internally. I was not born an entrepreneur, even if I have many degrees and a PhD. I had to learn those things. And this is why, as the vice president of the Association of Entrepreneur Women, and being active in many other associations promoting women's entrepreneurship, notably FNF, with which I've been working, and also the American Embassy, because we had created the US APO. It was the presidential initiative of President Obama. So we considered that the best way to support women internally to become great entrepreneurs was to create hubs, incubators, which would be supporting them fiscally, on taxes, on administration. And it was quick and incredible success. I do recommend such incubators to all institutions and organizations really willing to support women, because such incubators give knowledge, share knowledge, and help women to improve themselves in their business area. And then the second major experience I would like to share with you is the one I led a few years ago with colleagues in Africa. It's an initiative based on two pillars. First, capacity building pillar. We support activity by activity, for example, agricultural activities, or women working in fisheries, and those producing oil and so forth. Anyway, all activities undertaken by women. We have for Women in Africa, an initiative to support from the technical point, but also financial standpoint and administrative point of view, women. And today, we are creating an investment fund dedicated to funding women, small and micro businesses. And these studies we performed in 2018 and 2019 demonstrated that with 7,000 euros per micro company, we can equip such companies with solar technologies, with basic equipment to keep their production, to preserve their production. We can also give them a scientific support to improve their competitiveness. So we are launching this investment fund for micro businesses managed by women. Is it enough to help women? Of course not. As I was saying, we need a holistic approach, multi-dimensional approach, and the political aspect is very much important indeed, because public policies need to consider women as a real citizen in the process of development, participate to the development of the activity and of the common goods. We don't have any fair or balanced society without this. And this is in this capacity that I'm here today that I address you today. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to talk about our projects. We try to set the right example. As a Liberal Party, we developed an index of women's representativeness in our own political parties, and the inquiry of this self-assessment of our Liberal parties help us design capacity building programs for women. We have also launched several capacity building programs, one in North Africa and one in the MENA region with our FNF partner, and another program in Africa for women in Africa with our Liberal organization. And our goal is to send more women to parliament, to decision-making positions, and to achieve representativeness thresholds above 30%. I was myself a minister, and I can tell you then women alone tend to be fought very hard by gentlemen, by men, and cannot make anything progress. So our inquiries have shown that by going above the 30% threshold of women representativeness, that we can achieve sustainable societies. We have launched the new academy for the capacity building of young people, where there is a lot of women. And this is really the way we approach things. And for us, the main goal is to make sure women are working also in politics, but are also protected when they work in politics, because in many instances they are threatened, sometimes threatened to death. And therefore, this is our mission to protect them, because of a lot of competition in the area of politics between men and women. So this is what we do to complete this necessary dimension to make progress in the gender agenda. I'm very glad indeed and thankful for this invitation today. I hope this is the start of a long-lasting collaboration with Renew Europe, which is our voice in Europe. We are very proud of this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hakima. It has been a pleasure to listen to you, and a true honor really to have you here and to having you preside the International Organization of Liberal Parties. And I sincerely hope that we will continue to cooperate in the future, because we have many common challenges. Well, poverty in Europe also has a women's face. So thank